And we're back on the show, building a stronger generation with conversations that build stronger kids. On today's show, I have Luke John Harrison. Luke is the owner of Supercharged, and his story is one that has gone through trials and tribulations himself. From being relentlessly being bullied in school and spending a decade caught up in drugs and drink, Luke has literally transformed his life completely. Now a two-time author, speaker, successful gym owner, Luke has rebuilt his identity from the inside out. And special mention, Luke is a very good announcer as well. I've seen him. He's a Bruce Buffer standard. I'd put him up there. Through developing what he calls a supercharged mindset, he has reshaped not just his own life, but the lives of people he coaches. Today, he's focused on sharing his methods, lessons, and hard-earned experience to help parents, coaches, and young generation build strength physically, mentally, and emotionally. So, Luke, firstly, thank you for coming on the show. This is our first show in a very long time, and we have none other than Luke John Harrison. I've known Luke. I've been in the room with him for the last, I think, well, I've been doing it 5 years. How long have you been part of Alliance?
Probably about 8 or 9, I think.
So, I can't speak highly of the group enough that I'm in, and Luke has always been there, and he's always been at the forefront. And what he does with his company is a company called Supercharged. And he helps people not only physically but mentally, and you can see the logo in the back there with all the cool designs. So, Luke, tell us a little bit about Supercharged, what it is, and how you're helping people.
Yeah, so I started as a PT now 13 years ago, I think. Started doing group training, and it kind of elevated off lots of mistakes and things like that. It's still group training now, but I meld a lot of mindset stuff into the physical side of things. So alongside a private gym, we coach people online to be in a supercharged state. So basically, the easiest way to explain this is wake up with more energy, sleep better, feel better, eat better, perform better on any level that you're currently at. We mostly deal with adult males, 35 plus, although we do have females in my group as well. But I'd say it's about 75-80% males. But along the way, it's if you was to sort of encompass this a little bit more, it'd be like if you take a feeling out of 10, 10 being the best you've ever felt in your life, we work hard to keep ourselves as an 8, 9, and 10 out of 10 every day. That's basically the philosophy of what we do through philosophy of movement as medicine, keeping people active through structure, routine, set days, set times, helping them with their nutrition, their diet, but more importantly, helping them up here, which is the overall thing that helps the neck down as well.
Yeah. And I think that's the mindset aspect of people coaching is like a lot of people want to change, but if they don't address what's going on in there, it's going to be a lot harder for them to change. Like good motivation will only get them so far. Like we're just mid-January, February now. So a lot of people are now finding the excuses that they didn't have in January back to training. So when it comes to the first domino, so if someone wants to change for you, would they come to you or again, in general, what is the first domino you would attack? Would it be their mindset, their emotional state, their physicality, or do you kind of encompass everything when you're trying to help people change?
I think the simplest way is getting them to take some sort of action. So whether that's booking a call, reaching out to you, admitting there's a problem, getting started, like it has to be some kind of action rather than just talking about it. I think the admittance of they need a change is huge. Like I need to change. At first it's I need to, I have to. That'll be the usual thing. Like they'll reach a point where the pain of staying the same is worse than the pain of change. That's when we know ultimately is the tipping point where we're like, if I carry on this way, too many bad things are going to happen. I'm going to get diabetes. I'm going to get cancer. I'm not going to live to see my grandchildren grow up. Sorry. I am not going to be able to have a vibrant life if I continue the way I'm going. And there's so many people going down that route now, especially with alcohol, sometimes with drugs, with mental health, with physical health, with the food, the inability to get a handle on the food choices, I guess the also lack of routine that people have, late nights, always tired, everything like that. So that sort of need and that have to change at first, which ultimately I want to transform into a want to change and get to change, which is very different.
Yeah.
It's like at first it requires a push. It requires them having a little bit willpower, a little bit extra, you could say motivation, but that kind of get up and go to say, right, I'm ready to step into something. So that's a little bit of responsibility. A lot of people are not ready for that. I think there's sometimes there's a lot of information gathering right now. I was thinking about this morning, actually, Stephen. We're bombarded with thousands and thousands of things every single day, especially with social media and with phones and emails and technology. Like, it's a stress on the brain. So it's very, very difficult to make a decision, especially when it comes to a life-changing decision like to change your lifestyle. So in terms of where does it start, it's first the admittance that you have to change, and you have to change something about you. And that's hard because people are so ingrained in who they believe they are that sometimes it's like, well, I'm not this person and I'm not that person. I've never done this before, and I'll be crap at this and I'll be shit at that. So there's a lot of self-judgment and a lot of low self-worth. So when it comes to doing something they've never done before, there's a lot of barriers up. So that's why it's easier sometimes to just look online and wait and procrastinate and gather information and everything. But I think the first domino is that acceptance that you need to change. You have to change, because if you don't, things will get worse. And actually, that's quite a powerful place to be, I think, because I think if you're just comfortable and you're like, it's not that bad, sometimes it gets too bad, where it's too late down the line because you're naive to it. And even as adults, we get in this, we'll work too hard, we'll live on the go, we're underslept, we're under-recovered, we're overstressed, we're overstimulated, and we don't realize the impact that small changes will have on our life. So I think first it's a responsibility. That first domino is admitting I need some help. I can't do it on my own. That's why 90% of gym memberships fail. People try and do it on their own. They try and just look online, read a book, think that the magic pills, taking an injection and everything will sort out, and not having to do anything else. A lot of people taking the easy route now. There's a place for that kind of thing, but majority of the time it's admittance that there's a problem and it needs sorted, and we need help, and we can't do it alone, mate.
Yeah, and I would, when you have someone that comes in, and obviously I get this, like, we run a gym as well, and we get it like, I'd like the idea of dropping some weight, feeling better, getting quality sleep. All of that is a great idea. And what a lot of people tend to underestimate is the person the person that walks through your doors on the call, that person has to change. So like what you said, like, the question was environment, mindset, or move their body. And I think they all play a part, but I think then you nailed the fourth, like them admitting that there is an issue that has to be resolved or changed. And then they'll be more willing to buy into being uncomfortable. And we know, like, if they don't change, they're going to end up being uncomfortable. I'd say there's two guarantees in life. You're going to become old, you're going to become sore, or you're not going to be able to do anything, or you're going to become old, sore, and be able to do stuff.
Yeah.
So and both of them are hard. But I want to be with my grandkids running around, tumbling, climbing at 60, 70, whatever age I am, when my kids give me that wish. But yeah, those type of things. So admittance, I think that's I suppose that's an approach a lot of people probably don't look at. And like you said, it's one of those things it's very hard to then go, no, actually, it is me. I do need to change. I have to take responsibility and ownership of why I want to change. Because a lot of people want you to, like, as you say, like, what's the easy fix? Can I do it in 6 weeks? Can I take a jab? Can I starve myself with a crazy diet for 14 days and then I'm fine again? So yeah, I think admittance that's probably the strongest way. If you had someone, and I know this is meant to be about teens, and we're going to get into teens now, but it's a very interesting approach. Is there any specific kind of approach that you take to someone that contacts you to try and get them to understand that they need to take ownership or admit that they need to change?
Is this? Are we talking about adults here?
Yeah, adults. Yeah, adults.
Yeah.
We can all go down to teens as well eventually.
Yeah. I think it would be a matter of questions. How long have you had this problem for? What's going to happen if you don't get it solved? Yeah. I think, what have you tried in the past is good. Where are you at right now on a scale of 1 to 10? 10 being like, I'm ready to take action. 1, I'm waiting. Obviously this is not like a sales masterclass or anything, but these questions do guide you to admit that actually this is quite important that I get this sorted. And at the end of the day, the questions are going to steer the mind. As we know, the questions steer the mind. I think sometimes it's just about asking the right questions, and also feeding back the right information. Sometimes I am very, very firm. I like that word firm but fair, on calling people out on the bullshit. And I'll sometimes say, can I just be honest? You need this. And I'll give them a, potential solution. Can I be honest? Are you feeling this full of shit right now? Do you really need to change? Are you really ready? Sometimes it's very easy to make excuses now. It's very easy to say later. I think, again, the approach is always, I think, asking the right questions and sort of dragging that information out to a point where they are being maybe the most honest and vulnerable they've been in a long time. Because there's a lot of strength in vulnerability, I think.
Yeah.
Massive amount of strength. Like when you admit, like, yes, I need help. I'm ready for help. And that's embarrassing for a bloke, especially. Very embarrassing. But ultimately the most powerful thing you can do, because it's the truth. The truth hurts, but the truth sets you free. Like all these old cliches that we've heard for many hundreds of years are true. The truth hurts when you say the truth. Oh God, that is the actual truth. Oh, it hits us in the gut. I'm really not as good as I thought. I am on a downward spiral. But like an uphill battle is better than a downward spiral, right? But either way is going to be hard. You just got to choose your hard. But the truth ultimately hurts, but will set you free. And it absolutely will. And it's the best thing that you can possibly do is just start being honest about where you're at and what you need.
And I know from personal experiences, when you do eventually be vulnerable and you do get the thing off your chest and you do admit to where you're struggling or where you need help, it's a massive weight off your shoulders.
Absolutely.
Because you verbalize it. It's gone out into the ether, and then you're able to accept the advice coming back to you. Which
it's very, very easy now to hide, Stephen, more than ever, because of social media. We can have a faceless profile, and we can be getting a lot of contrasting information. We can be exposed to things which potentially upset us, trigger us, get us questioning or doubting our own preferences, or our own goals, or our own personal sanity in every way. But I think the hardest part of any journey toward betterment, be it physical, mental, emotional, whatever, is starting. I say this all the time to my guys, like down to the most minute thing. The hardest part is actually not training in the gym. It's getting to the gym. Once you're there, that's it. Once you've begun, that's it. It's the hardest part is actually the starting. It's like the reaching out, the answering the phone call, the sending the message, the booking the session, whatever it is. Like the hardest part is starting. Once you've done that, the ball starts rolling. It's not to say every part's easy after that, but the hardest bit is always the start, not the doing. But everyone has this idea that when they're doing it, they'll look stupid, they'll feel stupid, they'll not be able to do it. But they don't realize, actually, the hardest part is just actually getting started. When you get started, everything is easier. But it's that first hurdle that is often the most difficult to overcome.
Yeah.
So I think it's, again, sometimes making people feel like they're not going to look like a dick, that they're not going to feel stupid, that they're not going to hold everybody up, that they're not going to be the worst in the world and be judged and laughed at. Because that's everyone's biggest fear mostly, is that they're not enough. Anyone, whether you're young or old, it's, if I do this, will I be exposed? Will I be made to feel inadequate, insecure, stupid, irrelevant? That's a terrifying thought. That hurts a man's ego, that hurts a boy's soul. Like, that's dangerous. But if you can then, I guess you could say, reassure. Everyone kind of needs a reassurance. But I think it's also about the support, the encouragement, the environment. You mentioned about environment there. That's absolutely key. Having the right people around you, understanding that, actually, you become who you hang around. So it's actually better to do it along with people on the same journey than it is on your own in any endeavor. Like Alcoholics Anonymous, for example, it's not just one-on-one, is it? It's always group, because the need, obviously we're talking about the extreme things, but people who go to rehab, they do it in groups because the support is there. Like, and although you might not be a raging alcoholic or addicted to drugs or anything, a lot of people do have problems with food, with emotions, with mental health, with addictions, things like that. And if you're just trying to do it on your own or just with one person, I don't feel like you're going to get that vibe, that group energy, that ability to bounce off people. And I think you definitely become who you hang around, and your environment is absolutely key where you're putting yourself. When it comes to drinking, if you're hanging around with drinkers, you drink. If you're a smoker, you hang around with smokers, you go to the smoking shelter as well. You're far more encouraged to do the behaviours of the people that you hang around the most. So environment's key, mate. Questions are key, and getting started is by far the hardest thing you can do, but also the best thing you can do.
Yeah, and I think that leads into with our teens and obviously what we're trying to do. And again, it just this what you said there about like your environment. We the story that I heard from a parent was a teen that we know is now dabbling in not alcohol, drugs,
Hmm.
because her friends are
Hmm.
dabbling in
Yeah.
drugs, and she's 14, and it's crazy because it, it's so it's so easy to fall. I think it's so easy to fall in because you just, as a teenager, you want to be accepted. And the way I'd put it is that you don't care who's accepting you once you're in a group.
Yes.
And you've had your own personal battles with that, with drugs and alcohol, and even being bullied in school. So, obviously, and firstly, being bullied, was that the kind of catalyst that ended up you going into like kind of hanging around with the wrong people, doing the wrong things, or drinking, or doing drugs? So how did you end up falling into that? And like a lot of obviously young people are doing that, and I know personally people that have gone down that road, and some haven't come back, some have. And but then where did you hit your rock bottom and make the change on to who you are today, which is a complete 180 of the person that you were at one point?
Hmm. It's an interesting story because I was probably bullied most days in school from the age of about 11, 12 to about 15, 16. So it was
Mm.
like those sort of foundational secondary school or high school, I think it is, some places. 11, 12, 13, 14, that sort of 4 or 5 year period, which was quite relentless. But actually, in hindsight, in, excuse me, retrospect, I look back on the time. So a couple of examples I do remember: being tripped over in the corridor, having things thrown at us regularly, name calling every day. I grew my hair slightly long.
Mm.
I wore a Guns N' Roses hoodie, or a Iron Maiden one, and I had painted my nails black, and I was listening to alternative music, so I was different. So I got called all kinds of names. I didn't fit in with the crew. I had a good couple of friends, but I remember being spat on the bus one time. This guy spat on us from the top of the bus, and it was dripping down, and everyone was pointing and laughing. That was highly embarrassing. I remember a point in Newcastle where I had about 8 or 9 older lads threatening us, like threatening to pull a knife, wanting to steal me money out my pockets, grab the DVD I had. That was when I was just turned 14, and they were about 16, 17, 18. There was a group of them, that was a gang. That was just things like that. That was regularly, you know. But I look back on it actually, and it was the best thing that ever happened, was because I started training in the gym from study leave of school, and I used the anger to fuel my training, and I've been training 20 odd years since. So it got us into physical exercise. Had that not happened, I wouldn't have had the anger and the fuel to start. Now, I didn't use that anger and fuel as long term, because it always burns out. I eventually had to change it.
Yeah.
But it was a great thing for me to get into something positive. Now, the drugs came simply from hanging around people who took drugs, and I used to think it's not that bad, and it wasn't that bad for a while. And it was recreational, it was weekend use only, you know. But then after a few years of cocaine, ecstasy, weed to get to sleep, alcohol on a weekend, I started to notice my mental health wasn't very good. Even though I went to the gym a few times a week, and people would say I had some muscles and I was in shape, like up here wasn't right. It was like my body was okay, but my mind was just swimming. Negativity, broken relationships, lack of self-worth, insecurity, anger issues. Not that I would ever assault anyone or anything like that. I wasn't, but I would be angry to myself. I would obviously be verbally angry at other people, sometimes at girlfriends at the time and things, just short-tempered, you know, not things like that, not treating myself well and not feeling well. My rock bottom was I wanted to commit suicide with taking loads of pills in a pharmacy. I was debating which ones I could get. After a bad breakup that I had at the time, I wasn't handling it emotionally very well. And it's that sent us on a bit of a spiral. But after that, I was like, right, I've got to build myself up after that. But I think what it was with the drugs is at first it's fun. At first it's acceptable. And that's what it's like when you're young. I started smoking weed at probably 16, smoking bongs, drinking and smoking weed at the same time. And then obviously after that came the ecstasy and the cocaine and a little bit ketamine and trying this and that and all the other. And it's obviously, I don't even know what's available now, but I know it's very vast and common in many youngsters. And for a while you might get away with it, but it'll catch up with you. And especially if you're not, because it was weird for me because I was doing it on a weekend So during the week I was all right, but then I'd go on this massive blowout on a weekend, and it would take us 3-4 days to recover. But I kept thinking to myself, well, I only do it once or twice a week. But during that once or twice a week was extreme. So
Yeah.
I'd have 12 double vodkas on a night out. That would be, or I'd have 7 cocktails, which would be the equivalent of 18 vodkas or whatever. So and then I'd go home and I'd sniff cocaine at the same time, and then I'd smoke weed to get to sleep. So it's no wonder for 3 or 4 days I was low, I was depressed, my moods were up and down. It was massively affecting us. And then I didn't obviously realize until everything else was spiraling out of control. Started to hate me work, started to hate me relationship, started to hate me life. And then you get to suicidal, and it's like, well, obviously I didn't choose that, but the thought was there, and that's terrifying. So the drug thing's a funny one because it'll be fine for a short while, but eventually it'll catch up with you. But it's very, very difficult to tell that to somebody who's young and into it. But I think what's more important is you start to lead from the front as an adult, because it amazes me how many adults are still morbidly obese, smoking, eating crap, drinking in front of their kids and saying, you can't do that, you should do better.
Yeah.
We have to be the example as adults. We have to be the leader. We can't tell them what to do because they'll rebel probably, but we can educate them. We can, I think be there as support. I think also we can show them what's possible when you live healthy as well. I think for me, I don't have children as such, but I've got a grandson and a granddaughter on my partner's side, and I'm starting to notice now how much I need to step up, and how much as well. I've dealt with a lot of youngsters. I've got a lad at the minute who's just turned 16. He comes and trains with his dad, and I know it's having a massive positive effect on him because he might not listen to his dad as much, but I know he'll listen to me sometimes, which is good, and I get that. Kids are like that; they'll just not listen to their parents, but they'll listen to someone else. So there's always a reason why there's somebody somewhere's watching. I feel, and we as adults need to be that sort of leader, beacon of light. It's not to say we're going to get it right all the time. We're going to make mistakes. We're never going to be perfect, but I think being the leader and leading from the front, being the role models, is a real strong place to be. And people will catch on to that. Even youngsters will catch on to that. It's hard to tell them what to do, but if you show them how it's done, I think, and be the role model, they're far more likely to take notice.
Oh, definitely. And I have a 10-year-old son who would definitely listen to other people than me for specific things. But that's part of it. And like you say, it's about leading from the front as a parent, as a coach, as someone who literally, for us and what we're doing is giving back. How can we build I believe in building a stronger generation. Now, my kind of take now is we don't want our kids to go through being bullied, and we don't want our kids to fall into that bad situation, to have to come out of it. And look at there's been your story alone, and there's a bunch of people that have had things you've done things in your life, and now you're on the other side of it, and yes, you're successful, you're doing what you're doing, and you wouldn't wish that experience on other people. But at the same time, and this is where you kind of got to balance out, sometimes people have to go through things.
Yes.
To really experience it. I can say, don't do that. You can live a much better life. We can do this, A, B, and C. Sometimes people have to, the only way they're going to learn is by going through it. And then there's some people, and that's where controlled resilience would come in, is if you put kids through challenges and situations that are controlled, but tests them to really see who they are, I think we can help avoid those spiraling things. The environment, the people you're hanging around with, it's a huge aspect. But for the likes of people that are parents that are listening, or coaches that are listening, that know that the kids that are going through it, I know, the people we know that are either dabbling or starting to do drugs and stuff like that. And I'd be a hypocrite if I said don't do alcohol. I did alcohol when I was a teenager because that's what you did. But there's so much more to it. But for someone that's in it right now, or a parent that's dealing with it right now, what would be your kind of advice? Because you've been in it. What would be your advice to them?
Well, the thing is, these days it's different, and it is because we've got social media.
Yeah.
So when I was bullied at school, and I came home and I was safe completely until the next day. 100% safe in my house. I wouldn't see those people. They wouldn't interact with me. I could let it go. Kids can't do that these days because they go home, they check their Snapchat or their TikTok or their Instagram. and it could be there. And there could be people laughing at them and send them horrible messages. You know, we've heard the horrific stories of people telling them to kill themselves and all this horrible stuff. You know, they can't, because it's difficult to escape. And plus, I mean, we as adults are so attached to our phone. But again, that behavior teaches our kids as well.
Yeah.
So if we're not having time away from our phone and doing things that require, like, for example, I love climbing mountains on a weekend. Yes, I'll take my phone with us, but I love being in nature. I love going for walks with me missus. I love going to the gym and not using my phone. Doing these activities, you know, maybe that could be something that I think for a kid, a big challenge would be to just not have the phone for half a day. That's probably a massive challenge for some kids. So in order to do that, though, you'd probably have to do something that's unique, outdoors, different, that requires focus, that maybe it requires some kind of new skill, you know, whether it be martial arts, gym, bowling, anything like, you know, climbing mountains, whatever it is. I do believe a lot of some physical things are very important, judging by childhood obesity, adult obesity levels. Something physical is very useful to get used to doing as a family. But was the question like, what would be my advice to the adults or the kids?
I suppose both. If you had something for both, because I know that, like, from the parent point of view, I know one particular story. The parent is struggling, kind of naive.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's a thing, and
yes,
I don't want her to do. I said, well, what are you doing about it? And there's
Yeah.
nothing happening there. So maybe from a team point of view, like if you're a teen in that environment, because generally no one really wants to start it. You're doing it to fit in. 9 times out of 10, you're doing, like, no one smoked because it was nice. No one took their first sip of alcohol because it was nice. It was horrendous. And you got the spins, or you got the greens, and you got sick. But then you kept doing it because that's what everyone else was doing. So if you had something for, like, both, if you have.
I think if the massive thing, if we just go back to the environment thing for kids, like getting into sport. I wasn't into sport. Again, that's why I was partly bullied, because I was shit at throwing ball. I couldn't kick a ball. I've tried cricket, rugby, basketball, football, all the stuff. My dad was very encouraging. He wanted us to be into sport, but I just couldn't do it. I was useless. I was the skinny, weak kid. I had no coordination. Like, it's the opposite now. I've got great coordination. I'm very strong, fit, active, but that's 20 odd years of graft. And when I was a kid, I didn't have any of that. I was picked last on the team. You know, when you pick your teams, embarrassing. Totally, and so I don't know how they do it these days. Maybe they change it, but when we were at school, it was pick your team. I was there standing last or second last, and you always feel crap, don't you? When you're like, oh well, nobody wants me because I'm shit. So that never does good for your confidence if you can't do that. So then you're not accepted into those circles, which are like the cool circles. Then because you dress differently, you're an outcast, which is what I was. Now it's cool to love geek things and listen to metal music and alternative. It's cool, but 20 odd years ago, Stephen, you got bullied to hell for that. You got talked down to. You were a weirdo. You were a goth. You were this, that, and the other. You had stuff thrown at you. You were spat on the bus because you were different. Now it's kind of cool to do that. But unfortunately, if somebody takes a dislike to you, we have the social media aspect. But this is why I think it's important to be around people, because we always get strength in numbers. Bullies never work alone. Really, they have strength in numbers. They're cowards. But if you were to use strength in numbers as a positive way, just good people who lift you up, who just say, forget about them, they're a dickhead. Let's get on with it. You forget about it. People forget about the importance in a positive mental attitude. It's a very simple thing to do, but it's very difficult to do on your own. But if you're around other positive people, like a sports group or a martial arts group or a training group, whatever, it's way easier. It's way easier, because then most people obviously gravitate towards the negative. That's the human brain, especially as adults. This is shit. The weather's shit. I'm shit. All it's like, we get that, right? But that'll probably be the same with kids now as well, especially with social media. Like, the judging thing will be quick. It'll be snappy. It'll be this, that, and the other. Bullying will be very, very vast. But the environment thing is huge. Finding a crew, a squad, a tribe, a team, a community, whatever you want to phrase it as, that you fit into. Like, even if you are an outcast like I was, like, I didn't really find it, but if I was to go back there now, like, I loved video games, I loved board games, I loved alternative music. That's why I like going to gigs, stuff like that. The amount of board gaming groups that are out now, you know, the amount of kids' martial arts classes that are around. rock climbing things. Like now with social media as well, there's so many opportunities to market that things are popping up all over the place. So there's obviously opportunities there for people to join something.
Yeah.
So I do think that's key. I think strength in numbers, environment is massive, but this is not just advice to the young ones. This is advice to the adults as well. The adult is, if you're just hanging around your pisshead mates who drink all the time, then it's very, very difficult for you to get a handle on your health. If you just complain with all your negative workmates, it's very, very difficult to then stay really positive in a positive mindset. Like if you're just scrolling through Facebook and looking at all the complaints on the local residents page and complaining about the council and this and the government that, and you're arguing with posts on YouTube on what such and such on the right or left said, like, and you're not a politician, which so many people have their opinion, but they know absolutely nothing about really how it really works. They just think that this is bad and this is wrong and they're right and that's it. It's black and white. It's not. It's like there's many different colors in between, right? Perspective is everything, and I think another for everyone involved, Stephen, like this changed my life over the years, and I mean that like not just, ooh, this changed my life. I mean it's literally changed my life and my mind, and I still do it every day. Is a sharing, an expression, a physical written piece, or a verbalization of gratitude, something to be grateful for, a win, a lesson. The fact that you might send your mate a little message saying, just want you to know I'm thinking about your day, love you, send your partner a message, whatever it is. I send my best mates and my good mates a regular message just saying, love you, appreciate you, whatever. And I write 5 wins in my journal every night on what's went well of the day. This will be a win today, giving back, being on a podcast, talking about cool stuff, just trained earlier, had my hair cut, all this every day. I find 5 things that I'm grateful for. I've just been to Auschwitz, right? And most people listen, maybe not the younger generation, but I hope so, understand at least slightly the history behind that place in Poland in the Second World War. Now, when I was a kid, right, and I'm talking about when I was in school, I disregarded history entirely. I literally sat and messed about in lessons and I said, what's the point in learning about that? It's in the past. It's happened. It's over. Forget about it. Let's just move on. Very, 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 very naive and bad outlook to have. Because I've been at Auschwitz, like literally in the last month, it has again reignited my passion and enthusiasm for helping people, but also to remind myself and others of how absolutely fucking privileged we all are.
Oh, yeah.
Right now. Unbelievably. When you hear about the atrocities that happened 80 years ago, modern history, 80 years ago, it wasn't even like thousands of years, 80 years ago, how people can be treated, I think that's a place that everyone should have to go to as a lesson in life, because it will put everything into perspective. We complain that we haven't got the latest technology, or it's taking too long in a queue, or we didn't get thing on time, or somebody said something nasty to me, or it's harder for us. And then we look at how those people were treated, how people lived 80 years ago. Wow, it shapes everything. And I think it's a great lesson for teenagers and adults alike.
We actually spoke about that, me and my son, because my wife's been twice. I know it's not really a place you go back, but she's been.
I would.
She's been twice. I haven't been yet. And it's a place I would be. In school, I was a bit of a history. I nerded out on World War II. It was my thing. But I was talking to my son. He goes, well, "What was it about?" I was like, "Well, it was where one man decided that a bunch of people shouldn't be alive. He decided that the world should be better, and to get better is to remove people, and that's the worst approach that you could take. It's help people." And he was like, well, that's not right. And I was like, no, it's not right. But like you said, I think it's definitely like that should be on most school curriculums, as in like but the further that goes into the past, the further it's out of our mind. Is like, oh, that will never happen again till it happens again. And it's still in parts of the world, stuff like that is happening. But 2 things I kind of want to touch back on is like when you said about sport and you weren't sport wasn't really your thing. And that's one of my big pieces that I focus on when I speak to parents is there's a massive gap, especially in the school system, between physical fitness and sport. So they compare PE and sport as the thing. It's all one thing, but it's not. A lot of kids don't want to do sport, or they're not naturally gravitating towards sport. For one, they mightn't have the natural coordination, which can be learned. It's a learned system. It
Yep.
comes natural to some, not to others.
Yep.
And then you're getting picked last, and it's like, well, why do I want to do this? I'm training twice a week on a team, and I don't get. I'm on the bench on the weekends. What's the point? So there's a massive gap. And the one thing that I know to be true, I've been doing kids coaching for 12 years. I've never met a kid that didn't like being stronger. I'm picking up a weight and putting it down, moving it from one side of the room to the next. That is simple, easy wins. Is like,
Yes.
everyone, I'll make you stronger. And when you like, you train the gym yourself, you have a lot of clients. When someone lifts a weight for the first time,
Yep.
mind blowing. And if for a kid, a
Yep.
teenager, it is and then they start winning.
Yep.
And like you say, like, what's your win? Well, I got the gym 3 times a week, and I lifted an extra 2 kilos in my kettlebell, and I got an extra round in my workout. They're the
Yep.
wins, because the sport wasn't letting them win, because the
Yep.
best players play, and you don't get taken off to the side and worked on. Here, listen, your lateral movements are off, so we're going to spend the next 10 minutes for the next 6 weeks working on lateral movements till you get up to scratch with the rest of the team. That never happens. So
Yep.
you can understand why sport is, and like, again, I love sport. My kids play sport, but at the same time, I understand why sport is not the only answer, and actually can be hindering a lot of
Yes.
kids. And then the second one is the social media thing. That is, like, we're now looking at dementia for our teenagers now, kids now who are addicted to phones, guys in their early 20s. Dementia is actually a higher risk now, because their brains their dopamine center is being destroyed.
Yeah.
Like, because they need quick, like, they can't focus, they
Yeah.
can't read properly, they can't, like, all of these things that we're now going, yeah, this is true. And yet parents are like, well, I can't take the phone off my kid. I'm like, you're the only one that can.
Yeah.
To me, and I think there's a bit of, you have, if you're gonna be dumb enough to have kids, you got to be smart enough to raise them.
Yeah.
And raising kids is hard. It's amazing, but it is hard work. And my job, again, this is a conversation I had with my son. My son laughs every now and again. He's only 10, but he goes, he always tells his mom, I had a conversation with dad, because I'll go off on one. I'll go down a rabbit hole. And the last one we had, it was literally, he was talking about how I raise him and how I raise our daughter. And the way I approached it was like, I have to raise you to be a protector, because one day you'll have a wife, hopefully. Maybe not, I don't know. And maybe one day you'll have kids. So I have to raise you slightly different than I raise Riley. Because for
Yeah.
Riley, I have to protect her until someone good enough comes along I'm willing to allow to be in her life. And even then, I need her to be able to protect herself. So
Yeah.
in order to do that, I have to do things that you mightn't like right now. But hopefully when you're older, you'll go, I'm glad my dad did those things, versus
Yes.
give you everything you want when you want, so you don't give out to me. Like, the whole
Yes.
thing, you don't want your kid to give out to you. It's like, no, that's, again, it's what environment do you want to win? The short-term wins of having a kid not throwing tantrums, or the long-term wins of raising it? Like, when you're gone, I want my kids to be able to survive life.
Yeah.
I don't want them to, oh,
Absolutely.
well, dad's gone, what are we going to do now? It's like, well, no, he's raised us so we can look after ourselves. That's the goal. But with the social media thing, I think that's just killing that, because it's too easy.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, that's a big proponent of it. One of the things we did do, my son's lost all his screens, and the way he gets his screens back is he has to come up with a consequence. So what does he have to do to earn it back? It's not, oh, you're going to lose it for a month, because it's a time. It's a waiting game. Kids, right? A month, fine. All right. I'll wait a month and I'll get it back. Whereas now it's, you have to either read 2 books, or you have, the latest one is, you have to come up and give me something that you're going to do in order for you to earn it back. It's
Nice.
been 4 weeks, nearly 4 weeks, the end of this week, where he's lost his Switch, his Nintendo Switch. He still hasn't come up to me with an idea. And I say to him every time, so do you have an idea to get it back yet? Nope. It's like, okay. So
Nice.
it means it's not that important to him to have
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah.
we're not gonna, I'm not gonna push it on him.
Yeah.
A while ago when he was 7, he lost his iPad for a year and a half because he had to read 2 books. And it took him a year and a half to read 2 books. Now, he read those books on the 14th month.
Right.
You know, he read it in a month because he's like, I really want my iPad back. I was like, you know what you have to do. So I think that approach, well, for our kid is working.
Yeah.
For other kids, but it's those things. Like if you take it away, yes, my son was not happy for a while, but then he's like, well, I have to do something to do it. I don't want to do that, so I won't have it. And
Yeah.
I think that's where a parenting side of things is where kids like, oh, well, I can't take the phone off you. It's like, you know, that phone is hurting your kid. You know what it's doing. You know, or the bullying side of things. Like I can only imagine, like, again, I grew up in the 80s and 90s, so we never had, like, I got bullied in school a bit, but I can't imagine what it'd be like if it was online now. And then
Yeah.
if your kid is getting bullied online, get them offline.
Yeah.
Like that's probably I suppose the best approach is to get them offline. So if you had let's say, obviously you said you have a few teens that you've worked with and stuff. Um, for if a teenager's listening or a parent that doesn't feel confident, what would be your approach to them? Like they don't feel confident enough to make a change, but they do want to change. We don't have the confidence. How would you? What kind of piece of advice would you give them?
Well, there's a lot of reasons why confidence is not there. I mean, obviously, there's the low side of it, which is childhood trauma, abuse, that kind of thing, which is common, but not always the case. It's sometimes, that they just don't feel like that type of person. They're not a confident person, etc. Because maybe they compare their lives to other people too much and see others ahead of them and think that that's not them. But I think everybody needs a push. I think everybody as well never regrets being pushed, because I hear this a lot in a lot of different people from different backgrounds is, I need to kick up the arse. Now,
Yeah.
there's a difference between pushing someone continuously and giving them that first push, because like I said earlier, starting is the hardest bit. So I think the push to get started, it's always going to be uncomfortable. You're never going to fully believe in yourself. You can do it without the belief. You're never going to be in the perfect place at the perfect time. It's because everyone's looking for the perfect time. There's never a perfect time, but there's always a right time. Now, that right time depends. Like, will you ever regret getting started sooner? Because that's most people's problem, is they just wait, gather information, do it when they're ready. After Christmas, after birthday, after holiday, after this, after that, later, when the kids go back to school, after this, after that, when it's like, how much longer do you want to put your happiness on hold? Like, because everything you ever wanted is on the other side of your comfort zone. Like, we forget that. It's never, growth is not comfortable. Anxiety, which is felt in many ways, the palms, the erratic heart rate, the breath, the wanting to hide away. Anxiety is the emotion of growth. It just means it's unmade decisions. You're not, on the other side of that is everything you've more or less ever wanted. But people can't see it because they just get into that state. They believe they'll wait for motivation, for example. If I had the motivation, then I would. Well, if you study anybody who's successful, whether they're a young successful person or an older successful person, I guarantee that they have never truly felt like it before they did it. They did it so that they felt like it. And some of the most confident people in the world still have apprehension, still have anxiety, still have uncertainty, still have the fear of if things go wrong. They still have the doubt. Like, they might come across as confident, but there's still always in most people that what if. It's always going to be there. It's very difficult to silence that voice. It's just through time, it's like a muscle. You train a muscle through more reps, right? More reps and more weight, more resistance and more time exposed. That's ultimately how you get stronger. That's what people understand mostly. But that's the same with confidence. It's a muscle. You train it through resistance, i.e. when something feels hard to do and you have to push yourself to do it. The more that you do that, the more confident that you get. You can't just sit and wait for confidence to come. You have to take action even in the face of it, in the face of adversity. Like, courage apparently comes from a French word meaning of the heart. Meaning courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is feeling the fear and doing it anyway. And everybody needs as well that push from behind. Like I said, a lot of people who come to me say they need to kick up the arse. And yes, I'm here to do that, but I'm also here to put my hand on your shoulder and go, let's do this together, but I'm going to push you through that door. I'm
Yeah.
going to push you through this process, right? We're going to do it together, but I'm now going to give you a little shove and you're going to do it then on your own. Okay? Let's go. But there's not going to be any discomfort. There's always going to be discomfort. We're
Well, I think
starting with growth, with everything.
that's what a lot of people think is that it's going to be too uncomfortable. But then, like what you said, is like, why are you prolonging waiting to be happy? So you're already not happy, discomfort, uncomfortable, and you're waiting to start, but it's too uncomfortable. And like I said earlier, it's like you're going to end up one way. You're going to
Yeah.
old sore and able to do stuff, old sore able to not do things. So you like either way, you're not happy where you currently are, hence you're coming to get help. But then you're fighting the start. But like you say, we're gonna walk with you. And I think a lot of teenagers that are in that position, because they if they look at you, it's like, well, confident, he's an author, he's done this, he's does talks, he has his gym, he's successful, he's done all these things, he's amazing. And then it's, well, yeah, no, you've your doubts, you've had your struggles, everyone still has struggles today. It's just you've learned, you've built your resilience or your anti-fragility on top of it over years of consistency. Like you say, like every day I work towards making myself better. And I suppose with that, what would be I know one of your non-negotiables is your gratitude every day, but what would be your non-negotiables to not allow you to fall back to, like, again, obviously you're well past where you used to be, but what were the non-negotiables you put in? Like for what I say to a lot of teenagers when we do mindset work is, if you were to meet all your friends today for the first time ever, how many of them would be your friend? And a lot of them go, very few. I was like, then why are you still hanging around with them if you're not happy when you're around them?
Yeah.
For you, what would be non-negotiables for you? And then what kind of advice of a non-negotiable would you get for someone who's probably struggling, been on their phone, maybe getting bullied, or just kind of a little bit lost?
Yeah. So for me, my non-negotiable is a 9 p.m. bedtime, because I'm up at 5 every day, and I have a constant sleep and wake cycle of the same time. I don't drink alcohol. I haven't for 7 years. I don't smoke anymore. Last bit of weed was like a little bit 7 years ago or something, and then prior to that was like 10, 12 years ago, a long time ago. 7 years sober now, so I don't have any need to go out on a night unless it's a gig or a comedy show. That's the only two things that I think would get me out now. That's protecting that bedtime for not just hormonal health as we age, but for mental clarity, for my appetite, for my training, for my performance at work and home, so I'm not a ratty bastard. So I'm up early and being more productive with my day. Like, so the sleep cycle for me, the sleep pattern is critical and a non-negotiable. Like, I have to treat my sleep like it's super important, because my life depends on it. The quality of my life really does, and the quantity. To be fair, those who sleep more will usually last longer. So that is definitely a non-negotiable for me. I would say as well, although it might not happen every single day, it happens more days of the week than not, and on most occasions it happens 6 to 7 days a week, is some form of movement. It's movement. It could be a 3-mile walk, it could be a 20-minute walk depending on time, it could be a really heavy weight session, it could be a high intensity workout, anything that requires me to move and get slightly out of breath. Get the body moving, because this chair I'm in right now, I spend a lot of time in this during the day. From 9 till 3 most days I'm sitting in this chair. So I spend a lot of cumulative hours, and especially those people who work as an office job or a desk job, some of them spend 50 hours a week sitting down. So it's critical every day to get the energy up, to get the mental health up, to get the hormones going, and also to create that dopamine fix that doesn't involve a screen. We're burnt out now, and I think, again, sport, activity, gym, dance, martial arts, whatever it may be, like that physical side of things is super important, not just for your physical health, but for your mental state, for your ability to concentrate, for your ability to have time away from screen. Like, if people check the screen time, because this isn't actually a weekly non-negotiable for me. I check my screen time and I check the amount of times I picked up my phone, because obviously smartphones do that. They've got all the data in, which is great in your settings. And it shocks us every week. I'm like, for God's sake, I've had over 25 hours on my phone this week. But some weeks I'll go under 20 hours, which is great. but like I've got little goals and targets, and then I'm looking at my phone. I'm like, I picked my phone up 457 times this week. Like what's going on? Like if some people I know would be double that, treble that.
Yeah.
They've picked their phone up 2,000 times this week. They've had 74 hours on their phone. And it's like, wow, this should scare you.
Yeah.
Like 20 odd hours is still too much for me, I feel. Obviously, I do a bit business on it. But still, even though I'm conscious of it, I never want to push over 30 hours on my phone because I'm like, 30 hours a week's like a full-time job
Yeah.
on my phone. Like, it's just weird. It's weird to think about. Obviously, I'm very grateful that I grew up in the 80s and 90s like you, and we know what it was like before the internet, so we have that advantage. But also, as adults over the age of 35, 40, we still have that advantage because we remember what it was like. We just need to apply a little bit more of that and be conscious and aware. So, gratitude, movement, and sleep are my three things, mate. And I think for everybody, really, I think that's an important habitual cycle to get a handle on and apply more of.
Well, I think like that's the screen usage. We test our at our camps in the summer, and last summer this is where a kids camp. These are like 7 to 12-year-olds, and a bunch of our 12-year-olds had phones. And the question was, a lot of them are in sport, and there's two caveats to that. So when you start playing sports as a kid, it's generally fun, and then most teenagers that are playing sport, it's no longer fun; it's about performing. So you got to go, and there was very little transition of now we're going to performative sport. It's no longer fun. It's about winning. You need to turn up. You need to perform. You need to be on your A game. But we're not going to give you the tools outside of sport to allow you to perform. You just got to turn up no matter what happens. And what I was asking the kids is like, how many hours on your phone? On average, it was 4 hours a day. So my question was, how many hours a week are you playing sport? We're doing 6 hours of sport. If you have an accumulated of 24 hours on your phone a week, and you're only playing 6 hours of sport a week, and you want to be a professional, what could you do? And they're like, oh, we could do less phone. If you want to be a professional athlete, because a lot of them like want to play rugby for Ireland or Leinster or something like that, or want to play for Manchester United. Like a 12-year-old kid wants to kind of live this sporting lifestyle. And my thing was, if you have more screen time than you do exercise time, you don't really want to be the top athlete. And when I coach kids, I'm like you said, I'm firm but fair. I'm very honest about, if you want this, you need to do it. You need to take responsibility. You need to take some ownership. Yeah. So I think it's one of those, like kind of what you were saying as regards to your screen time, is understanding that. And I think that comes down to parents managing that as well. Like when my kids, and they will, because I know they live in a life where they're growing up where phones are a part of it. There'll be no phones allowed upstairs. There'll be like, if you set a standard, then that's a norm. And once it's a norm, now if your norm is they can do what they want when they want, then to set a new standard is just going to be a growth phase, and it's going to be uncomfortable. So yeah, like again, like you say, it's kind of understanding where you are, having gratitude, moving your body, and that will help any kid that with anxiety. Moving their body will help burn that energy and help bring that down. I mean, like if you're stressed out, you go for a walk, you get more clear-headed. You have a good night's sleep, you're more clear-headed next day. Things aren't as bad as they seem a lot of the time. So that's it. So for the last question then is kind of a thing. You're the first person I'm asking this because obviously we're back. So if you're in a room with a teenager right now, they're unsure of themselves, distracted, maybe struggling, what would you say to them that could change their trajectory?
What would I say to them? So would this be if they were asking for advice, or if I'm giving advice?
Asking for advice.
Asking for advice, right, okay. Okay. I guess this could go a lot of different ways. So obviously there's lots of advice and wisdom I can give from where I'm at now at 40-year-old, but it might not hit the same to a teen as it would to an adult, of course. A lot of the motivational side of things, I think, sometimes it'll hit on deaf ears in a younger generation. But I think I would say what's important to you in the next 5 years or so? What's important to you in the near future? What do you want out of life? How do you want to feel? What do you want to experience? And what would you say is your biggest stumbling block? I think it'd be a matter of questions.
Mm.
to get them to think a little bit more rather than tell them what to do.
Yeah.
I think extracting that information could be very, very valuable, and they might end up, figuring it out themselves. Other than that, I think it's a difficult one because I'm trying to put myself in that situation now. I've spoken to quite a few teens over the years, actually, but it's more so just giving a speech and telling stories and things like that. But I think a question of what would you love to do with your life would be an interesting question. There might, again, that might just be, I do not know, could be the answer. Yeah. A lot of teens will just be, I do not know. Right. Okay. So I think what as a great question as well could be, what have you done that was really hard, but you got through it? And build their wins
Yeah.
to cement the confidence, because a lot of the time they'll just be focusing on what they can't do, what they're shit at, what's went wrong, what they've never been able to do. And as we know, confidence comes from proof. So a little bit building of confidence, a little bit extracting of data to get that actual reality in. So there's no more sort of drama. It's like, well, you've done this, you've told us you've done that.
Yeah.
So what else have you done? What did you do last year? Like, what was hard last year that you got through? Have you had to get through any family stuff? Have you had any debts in the family? Have you done a physical challenge? Have you ever had to get through hard stuff at school? Like, what's went wrong that you've, at the end of it, you thought, I got through that. I think that's a great way to build confidence, is looking at what you've already got through. And sometimes as well, as I use this for a lot of adults actually, the problems that you have now, maybe 5 years ago, you would have wished you'd had. Like as we grow, like we've got problems now, and we're like, this is a real issue. But if I asked you 5 years ago, you had this problem, you'd be like, oh, that would be quite a good place to be anyway. Yeah. As if you're in a growth-based mindset, that is. It's different situations, I guess. But I think the win thing would be huge. I think I would maybe get them started on that journey of counting wins. I wish I'd started to do it sooner. It's one of the things that as an adult, I think can work for everybody, that gratitude, that cementing of confidence. Because I needed that, I think, as well. Finding something, like you mentioned about the gym earlier, and the difference between sport and training, like sport and physical activity. When I found the gym at 16 in study leave of school, so they were like just beforehand into the gym. We were allowed to go when I think we hit 16 or 15 or whatever. We were allowed to go to the gym, and we went in as a small group. There was like 10 of us, and I actually lifted a weight, and I was like, I can do this. I'm actually okay. And I found I was actually one of the strongest in the room. Even though I couldn't throw a ball, I couldn't do cricket, I couldn't do rugby, I couldn't run, I was terrible at everything, but I could lift a weight.
Yeah.
And I felt, oh, this is something that I'm good at, or at least better than some people. So when you find something you're good at, you go with it. That's the win. That was a massive, and then it started this whole journey, of course, and then the fuel was the bullying and all the rest. But finding something that you're good at, that is still hard, that you're not necessarily skilled at, and building on that as well. Building on what you're already good at, what you've already overcame, and working with the reality of that. Because we'll just forget, right? We've got terrible memories as it is. Things are getting worse with technology. We're not relying on memory very much, so people are not remembering things. But I think the more you can bring that into your forefront of your mind, if actually I did this and I overcame that and that happened and I got through that, oh, actually I am a bit more confident than what I let myself believe that I am. Actually, I've done quite a lot. That automatically, like we know ourselves, we go to these events, and what it's like when we write down 20, 30, 40 wins, how your confidence within 10 minutes changes.
Yeah, and you can feel like you've had a really bad quarter, and then you're like, actually, no, I just feel that, but that's not what actually happened. And question to teens, because teens they're an emotional roller coaster of just every side of anger management that they have, and anxiety and all the things that come with that. But to show them, like, listen, you are feeling this right now, but look what you've done.
Yeah,
you're doing the job. It's a moment in time, but you're still, like, you've achieved all these things. You are on the right path. You're moving. So it's a really good question. Layering their wins, showing them that they are doing a good thing. Because again, like, like you could, like, you're highly successful, but you can have a bad day and be like, oh man, the world.
Why am I doing this? I need a job. This is
Yeah,
terrible. Everything's
exactly.
going wrong.
Yeah, and that,
Why
and
have I
all,
decided to do this?
but how you feel is not a true reflection of what's actually happening in your
Of
life. And I think that
course.
for a lot of teenagers, I suppose that's really really important lesson for them to learn.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Well, Luke, thank you very much for being on the show. Guys, if you're listening, I hope you got a lot from it. Anything, I'm going to put Luke's details in the show notes so you can follow him, and I highly recommend you follow because he comes up with some really good content that he puts out there. And Luke, again, I really appreciate for being here. And guys, we will see you on the next show.